Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Yvonne from Ginger Chick Rehab. I'm so glad to have you visiting our channel today. If you're new here and visiting our channel for the first time, this is something I do with my husband Chris. We take thrift store found items and we give them new life. And here on our channel, we share the process of what we do to these items, and we are resellers. So we resell these items here locally. We are blessed to have a couple retail booths at a local antique mall. So throughout the month, I'm constantly showing you a thrift haul, a thrift with me, and so this is another part of thrift store makeovers. So I'm trying to keep them a little bit shorter, not doing as many during the winter time. They were a little bit longer videos, but we were inside and it was cold and nobody wanted to be outside. So I'm trying to shorten them all up for you all. So maybe this is just a wind down, seeing what I'm doing to some items. So in today's video, these are some of my thrift store found items, and then I'm making over and sharing the process with you all, my vision.
So this is part of my weekly thrift haul. These are makeovers that I do with the thrifted find items that I share with you, my vision, and how I achieve the look at the end. And some of these you have seen in a thrift haul, and some I like these little galvanized I picked up at a garage sale, so for $1 a piece, yes. And then this flower, they had one more at my local Dollar General. And I can't wait to redo these flowers. And these stars I don't really show. They're very common in our area, and I'm happy to make them over in black and white because they sell really well. Now these are some more metal finds. They're a little bit more unique. Oh my gosh, I am super excited to make these pieces over. I know if you're a fan of color, this is maybe not be the channel for you, but I just share my vision, and most of the items I do in black and white. And for us, we are blessed that they sell really well. Just cleaning these items up, making them a little bit new, giving them a little bit different detail. For me as a reseller and a thrift flipper, this is what works for me. So I love to share the process with you all. So even wall decor, I absolutely love looking through that area. These pieces are beautiful in themselves, and just doing that black with that white detailing, bringing out the detail of these pieces definitely help. And this one I just picked up at a local garage sale right around the corner from our house. Whew. And then just changing that burgundy out and then updating this and that beautiful beadwork on this one. And right now, there are so many stores that have clearances because the stores were closed down, I believe. And so I found these welcome signs at our local Rural King. Yes, folks, Rural King. And then I have a couple more pieces that I'm going to add into the grouping so I can get when I do a makeover like this, I'm trying to get the masses done. If I'm going to paint and spray, I just like to get lots of pieces done. And just updating this burgundy into a white color just helps it sell, just that updating of a color. I often wonder, for us who resell, do people know how much work actually goes into what we do? Do they know that we take all this time to remove all these tags so they don't know that these were other pieces from somewhere else? I'm sure they kind of know, but all the work goes into it. You all watch our channel, but I can't tell you that people that shop our booth necessarily 50-50, maybe 30-70 watch our channel, or they just come in and they buy what they see. So do they know the behind the scenes of taking tags off, taking pieces and parts just to make it a well-loved item and get it new for them to buy and put in their own homes? I was really super excited to see this little bolt. I'm like, oh, I think that maybe I can unscrew that. But no, it was in the wood itself. I could not get it grabbed. And then when I flipped it over, I noticed it was actually brad nailed in. So that was a no-go on taking that apart. And one thing I always do know a lot with wall decor, when you buy it from the store, it has those corner protectors in, and people take the corner protectors off, but they never remove the staples. And for me, I don't want that scratching up that paint on my wall. So I always make sure that I get those removed. Definitely gotta love when you run across a brand new item, whether it was a gift or it was an afterthought. I'm not really sure, but I know this is from our TSC store, this line is, because I've looked that line up. It's definitely the farmhouse. And so I'm deciding how I want to go about this. Do I want to take the time to paint the backs of these pieces, or do I want to take the time to tape off these pieces? So you just have to decide, either way, you need to protect that back, make that back look just as pretty as what your front does. Then I'm removing the hangers that the factory has put on these. I like the hangers to be a little bit lower. If you don't have to see your screw or your nail, I kind of prefer that personally. And I really prefer a one hanging system if I can achieve it. Same thing with these welcome signs from the Rural King. I'm going to be removing these two hanger systems. This is really actually a very lightweight. So one centered middle, a little bit thicker wire, I think will be the easiest way, personally for me, to hang it. Now for this shelf system, that is a paper over the wood. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this rubber mallet and I'm going to pop this out. Now there's two ways you can do this, depending on how you want to finish your work. For me, I'm just going to maybe put a transfer on it, put some decoupage paper over it, so I'm not going to worry about removing the paper. But if you were going to do a stencil where you're putting vinyl on it, you definitely want to get that paper removed or flip it over, because that paper, as soon as it gets wet with paint, it will just come off. A life lesson learned here. And then I've got all my tags off, all my price stickers off. I have any hardware that I want to take off, anything taped off. Yes, I do tape off before washing, only because I find that the tape over dust tends to not leave a sticky residue behind, and that way if I do wet and they're dry, it may not stick as well to a clean surface that may be slightly damp by the time I want to tape it off. So that's why I tape off first. If anybody's wondering, we all just figure out what works for us when we're flipping items like this. But I'm just using Superclean in hot water and then just getting everything wiped down nice and clean. You want to get everything clean so you know that your paint is going to stick and adhere properly. Now this had a couple little tabbies at the top, but it was missing one, so I went in with some wood filler putty and then filled those holes in. Now when it comes to this sunflower, if you had seen my previous video when I did some decoupage paper and some other flowers and a dragonfly. The dragonfly had already been outside and started to have some age and some weather to it where it had a little bit of rust. So when it comes to this sunflower, after I get it cleaned and then it's dry, I'm going to go in with a couple coats of shellac on the front and the back, and that hopefully is going to prevent and seal in that rust from bleeding through my white. So as I'm getting these pieces cleaned and I'm getting them on a board, I'm like, are you serious? I did this flower before and I did not know it would come apart. I have two pieces that I need to take inside and clean. That little terrarium, the little greenhouse. Just the easiest way to get that cleaned is for me to soak it in some hot water and some Dawn dish soap. And on this milk can, that is all paper on there. So I was able to soak that just in my bucket and get that lid cleaned off. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to soak this in the hot water in my sink so I can remove all that paper, because I'm not sure how I'm going to finish that piece off with my stencil or transfer. And then sometimes while I'm doing a grouping of things, I'm like, oh, hey, I have that new purchased piece that from Goodwill also, so I'm going to throw this little laundry rack in there too. Yes, if you are a regular to my channel, yep, I am a creature of habit. And so it's okay, you guys, if you need to fast forward through the step that you already know that I do. Yep, I give everything that I want to paint an undercoat of black. So, and for some of my viewers always say, why do you not use a handle? Hey, I've got a handle on my can today, especially since it is a bonus size. Yeah, I love that. So I just like to undercoat everything in black that covers up any of the colors, and I like to distress my pieces. So at the end of it, when I am distressing over it, that's the black is what I want to see underneath there. If you're new to my channel and visiting it for the first time and checking out these thrift store flips, and you are thinking about getting into doing this for profit, or you just want to do it for yourself at home, I can suggest while you're out thrifting or you have one, a Lazy Susan and turntable when you're spraying items. Look at how easy it makes doing these objects. I can stand in place, I can spray, I get a nice even spray that way without having to move around myself. And yes, I am going to be spraying over this paper. I don't want to have to cost efficient of cutting a new piece, we have done that in the past because I had tried to sand off. It doesn't, those papers are stuck on those manufacturers. So I can either use this as the back after it's all covered up, or if I'm not going to put like any vinyl or stencil on it that's going to be pulling up on it and just laying decoupage paper or a transfer on top of it, we should be all good. As you see, I just tape off the areas I don't want paint on. So you don't necessarily always have to have it all taped. You can use some paper. I have a little bit of contact paper that I had used on the back of other pieces. So then that's just the other side of the contact paper, not to waste, since it's just going to get thrown away anyway. Now that I got everything covered up in black, I'm going to go in and seal it in using some Rust-Oleum clear matte. This is going to seal that black paint in. It's going to top coat it. So when I move on to my next, when I do the white, or if I'm going to leave them black, this will make sure that that black is going to stay. And when I'm rubbing it to distressing it, the black is going to stay and not make a mucky gray mess when I go over it in white. So what you do to one side, now you have to flip them over and do to the other side. So I'm just going to be repeating the steps, flipping them over, painting that other side, the surface area that did not get covered up with the black, and then sealing that back in with that Rust-Oleum clear matte. So for my white paint, I'm going to be using Rust-Oleum's chalk paint and the linen white and putting it in my TrueCoat Graco handheld sprayer. For me, when I'm mixing the water ratio into my paint, I'm looking for my paint to be thin enough that when I lift up my paint stirrer, that it's not leaving worms like paint on top of paint. So when I lift it up, I know I have enough ratio of water mixed in with my paint. When I lift up my paint stirrer, it just goes back into the paint itself. So these sprayers are just so nice. Any of the sprayers that you use to paint your small items, just being able to get them done in minimal time. Especially being able to spray pieces like this, or you know that it's not going to be so much fun trying to get inside with a paintbrush, or like these slats, so you're not getting drips and runs. Just for me, this has been a time saver working and testing out these sprayers to see which one I like the best. When it comes to the flowers, I'm going to be painting both sides of the flowers. There's no way for me to tape off the back to keep that black clean. It's going to get that misty spray in the back. So I'm just going to go ahead and paint them white as I'm painting the rest of the pieces. So now what you do to the one side, you have to do to the other side. So most of these pieces are getting their other sides painted white. So I'm just going to, after that paint dried, I'm going to flip them over and proceed on painting the other side. Then after I get them all painted and they dried, I usually let them sit overnight to dry. I do like this Rust-Oleum chalk paint. I find that it's very easy to distress. So for these pieces that I just want the edges, I don't want a lot of over distressing on it, I'm going to go in with some 220 sandpaper and then just touch all those sharp edges, bringing it down to that black that I had sprayed underneath. I'm going to go in with a wet wipe and I'm just going to go over the flat surface, making sure that it's nice and smooth, and I'm going to touch those edges, and that should make a little bit more of that black show through. Now for pieces like this that I don't mind and I want them to be overly distressed and show a lot of that black through and it has all that texture, I'm just going to take that wet wipe and just go to town and let as much black show through as I can. Well, I don't want the entire black to show through, but you know what I mean. And the same thing with this fun little lantern. I'm just going to make sure that my wet wipe is nice and wet, and then I'm just going to keep rubbing on it. That's why I like that Rust-Oleum. When I want to really have a lot of the black underneath show through, really distressed, really show off those details and those features, this is my choice, is the Rust-Oleum. I didn't show this on camera, but the slats of this one ended up having some bleed through. Was totally unexpected. It was a new piece. I guess it was just raw. So I ended up having to spray it with a couple coats of shellac, and I tried really hard not to get it onto the flowers because I knew it would not distress as easy as I wanted it to. So I do have to go in with a little bit of sandpaper to get some of this to move, to get down to my black. After I get the pieces distressed the way that I want them, I make sure that they dry. I'm using a wet wipe on them. They're still kind of reactivate that chalk paint, so I make sure that they dry before moving on to seal them in with some Rust-Oleum clear coat and matte. You can use whatever clear coat you want to seal that chalk paint in. Now that I'm flipping these over and working on the back, this one had a tear in the brown paper that was on the back of it, and I know making things be presentable for others, I'm like, I better remove that and replace it. So all I'm doing is scraping off that old, and then I'm just going to take some of our brown paper that we use to cover our tables up, or dollar store carries this brown paper. We do this a lot with mirrors that need backings on them. So I'm just scraping it all off, and then I'm just going to use my hot glue gun and glue it back on and just cut off what I don't need. And now I'm just adding all the hangers back on so they are ready to hang once they have been purchased. So now I need to replace the hanging system on this. I didn't want to fill in those holes and put something on the back. It has some pieces of slatted pieces of wood on the back that kind of brings it out from the wall. So I'm like, what can I do? I thought about black wire, but the hole was kind of big. And I'm not a really big fan of that nautical rope. So what I thought here, I have this thrifted hemp string that I thought, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and take 3 different strands, braid those different strands, and take those 3 braided strands individual, and then braid those together to make a nice chunky, a little bit more appealing to me anyway, to do this beautiful flower arrangement picture justice. This hemp rope is flexible, but it's nice and stiff, so all I did was get those 3 braids, push it through the holes, and then I took the individual middle strands and tied that in a knot first to bulk it up just a little bit more, and then the final all together I tied it in a knot, so that way I know that it's not going to stretch and pull through that hole. And then I just cut off the excess. And if I feel like I need to, I might use a little bit of hot glue, but it feels nice and secure to me. Now I have the single drawer chalkboard, and for some reason when I did the Rust-Oleum clear coat, I don't know if it was the clear coat or what happened, but it crackled. And usually I would sand that off and I would repaint it, but it crackled. I don't know, I kind of liked the crackle. Kind of reminded me of milk paint that I've always wanted to try. I haven't tried that yet, but I thought, you know what? I like it. I'm going to leave it alone. Sometimes mistakes happen, and it's this distressing you like. So I'm going to put a little bit of this Tim Holtz flower design pattern, this decoupage paper right on the front. I just absolutely love this decoupage paper. I try to have restraint and not to use it all the time, but I will say when I put it on any of these little cubby drawers like this, they've all sold out of my booth. To attach it to the drawer, I'm just going to be using some Mod Podge. I'm just going to go ahead and I take just a regular paintbrush that I use for chalk paint that I rinse out all the time. I find that this Mod Podge just rinses right out. So I'm just deciding which of the pattern on this piece that I want, and I'm choosing to have those words. So I've already got some of the Mod Podge pulled out on a little paper plate, and now I'm just going to go ahead and apply it to the drawer. And then after I've got it all smoothed out, I'm just going to go ahead and apply some more over the top of it. I actually set it off to the side to let it dry before cutting any of the sides off. I find that way that it doesn't accidentally tear. So now I'm just going to go in with my Cricut X-Acto knife and just get as close to those edges as I can. Then using viewers' tips, they said go ahead after it was dry and then take an emery board, sandpaper, what have you. I thought this emery board would be easy, and just take any of the excess off, going in the downward motion, so I'm not pulling it up, that I'm going down, and then taking off any of the excess. Nice thing, I didn't even have to paint this hardware. It's a little metal piece and it was perfectly already painted. Now for this sunflower, I bet you all thought I was going to put decoupage paper on that. Anybody had seen my other flower flips when I did decoupage paper, but I've already done that. So I wanted to try this. I really absolutely love the sunflower. So I'm just going to go in with some Waverly ink chalk paint and go ahead and then just paint this whole. I'm going in with a little bitty brush. There's some little bitty slats. The metal pieces are laying on top of that centerpiece. That way I can have a little bit more control as I'm going around the edges. After getting those little edges all detailed in, now I can go in with a bigger brush and get the rest of the area. So the same thing here. I absolutely loved how this distressed. I loved that I could take this apart. That first one that I had done with the decoupage paper, I didn't get to take apart. So it just painted so much differently and distressed so much differently. So I absolutely love how this turned out. So I'm just going to leave that center black and then put this back together once I figure it out. After the ink chalk paint had dried, I wanted to go in and distress it. I like the chalk paint because I can go in and water distress. There's all those little bumps that you see, and I want to bring out those details. So I'm just taking a wet wipe and then just rubbing that paint off on those little bumps to show those little whites to give that detail popping. Okay, so here I am. I'm using these little alphabet letters that I got off Amazon for this little laundry board. I had laundry coat all picked out, and I'm just going to town like I don't even know that I spelled laundry wrong. Yep, I know you all probably noticed that right off of the bat, but it took me a while before I realized. So I thought instead of refilming, I'd just show you, hey, we all make mistakes. And yep, I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot my U. But anyway, so I got my letters all rinsed, typed out, not spelled correctly, I know. And I'm just taking a piece of masking tape to grab those letters. That way I have something to keep them all together. Remember, it's always about what the finished product looked like. Sometimes when you get in the middle of doing something, you have to switch because you spelled the word wrong. Okay, so here's my fix. I'm just taking some of that black Waverly ink chalk paint, and yep, instead of this being white, it's going to be black. And oh my gosh, there's some little fuzz on my brush that was just driving me crazy. I could see it in the paint, but I couldn't see it when I lifted the brush up. This should just be an easy project, but sometimes it is not. I did 2 coats of the ink chalk paint. You can see where I taped off that I didn't get up on the side. So I'm just taking a wet wipe and making sure that this paint is nice and smooth, that I don't have any brush stroke marks. So I did that same technique. I laid my letters out. That's why I'm just going to show you what I'd already taped. Added my U to my Laundry & Co. And yes, StazOn does make a ink. And as I'm doing it, going, wow, there's nothing coming on my ink. So there was a little bottle that came with this white, and apparently that was what was to fill it. So I had to go ahead and put it on there. You can see that it made a little bit of a hot mess. It was kind of a weird little stamping, but I achieved a look afterwards, and I actually probably like the black background better. If you've been watching my thrift haul flip videos that I have been posting on Sundays, I had purchased these Transfer Me transfers off of scrapbook.com. They are ones that you use water on. So I've been trying to, and because they were on sale for less than $5, so cost efficient for us flippers. I love the IOD. I love their redesign, but I like to show you guys another little option, cost efficient. Everybody's funds are a little bit different, so I thought, you know what, I'm going to buy some of these. I like them. They have the theme that I'm going for, so I'm going to share with you and how to keep on using them. Now this is the background for that little shelf that has the little pegs on it. So this was actually too long for this board, and then I had to be careful because where it's going to staple back on, that was going to take some of it off too. So these are, you have to take that outer covering off that's shiny, that's clear, because that's the sticky side, and then you place it upside down because of the backing. The paper is what you're going to put the water on, and that's what's going to come off once you add the water. So I'm just trying to see how I've got it, if I've got it centered or not. Now the directions on these say to put them into a bowl of water, but I had some problems when I first did that it overlapped and touched each other, and then the transfer was ruined. So this is the way that I have figured out that I just put the transfer where I want it to be, and then I put the water on the back. And that seems to be working out just fine for me. You can see once it's decided that it is done, it starts puckering. So then that gives you something to grab onto to remove that backing off of there. Then I just go in with a dry paper towel, napkin, and just take any of the excess water off that I left behind. For me, I want to distress this. It just looks, the lines are a little bit too clean. It's not filling up that whole space to be that clean. So what I have figured out, if I take a little bit of a cotton ball and a little bit of acetone, and yeah, there goes my nail polish, but that's okay. I can redo my nail polish. So what I'm doing here is I'm just taking off that sharp edges. I'm just making it look like it's a little bit worn. So you just want to go in very gingerly. This is that back side because if you remember when I painted this, I painted over the paper. So I flipped this, so this is the wood, not that paper. That's the one thing I've always said on my channel. Our channel is keep doing something until you like it. If you love it, others will love it too. So I'm just going to take a little bit of that cotton ball. I just want to make it look worn. So to me, there's probably another process. Maybe you could sand it, but I don't want to remove, and I feel like I have a little bit more control with what I'm doing on this technique. So yep, if you guessed it, yep, I'm going to be doing some grain sack striping on the edges of both sides here. So I'm just taking my 1/2-inch tape. I don't want big, I don't think I want big stripes going on. I don't want them to overpower what my image is. So I just laid one over onto the edge of the side because I know that's where I'm going to be nailing, stapling it back to that board. And then I want to make sure that I'm centered. So I'm going to take another piece of this 1/2-inch tape at that image also. And then I'm going to work my way over. That way I'm working from the two edges in and then figuring out my spacing. So now I'm going to guesstimate on how big I want my stripes to be, and I'm going to kind of make them into thirds. Now I'm going to go ahead and rub really hard on this tape. This is an uneven piece of board, but that's okay. I'm just going to go in with some Apple Barrel multi-use in black paint with a makeup sponge from the Dollar Tree store, and I'm only going to put one coat because I know that I'm going to be distressing this black. I don't want it to overpower that middle image, so I just want a little something to fill up this space. I'm going to use the assistance of the blow dryer to make sure that my black paint is dry and that it is not pulling off my previous paint, but I did seal this in already with some Rust-Oleum clear coat, so it shouldn't, but just to be on the safe side. And as you see here with that uneven surface, it had a lot of bleed under. And if this was going not to be as overly distressed, I could have used that base color of white to prevent that bleed under from happening. I know that I was going to be heavily distressing this anyway, taking most of that off, so I wasn't going to be too worried. One of the tips is to paint that underneath that white first before going on and doing your stencil color. And as you see, I'm just taking a piece of 220 sandpaper and just taking as much off to me what's visually appealing to my eye that's not overpowering that middle image. So then I decided I did not just like those 3 stripes. It kind of reminded me of the jail, like this poor little rooster had gone to jail. So I decided that I was going to make that middle section chunkier. So all I did was match up my tape, that 1/2-inch tape, to the edge of what I'd previously painted and worked my way in just to do another big chunky line in the middle. So hopefully I like this. Remember, just keep doing something. It's paint. You can paint over it. Just keep doing it until you love it. Now I'm just going to go back in and I'm just going to heavily distress that big chunky stripe that I put in the middle, and I can already tell that I like it a lot better. So now I am onto this little milk can, and I know you're probably thinking, why are you not putting a cow on there? None of my cows fit, none of my milk fit. I didn't want to do a tissue paper. I don't have that kind of inkjet printer that I can print something out, but I had ordered these beehives because I'm a little bit obsessed with some bees. So I like the way this milk can turned out. So these are, again, some of those water distressed transfers, and these I actually had gotten off of Amazon. So on this one, it's a little bit different. As you can see, the image is facing you. It's not reversed like those other ones where you put down. So I was a little bit confused, but unfortunately I didn't hit record. I thought I did, but I didn't. So it's similar, and luckily it came with directions. I needed to take my pieces outside. Man, do I need to clean my white bench on my front porch, but just ignore that now that our pollen is all done what it's done. So I just need to seal all these pieces in. The transfers need to be sealed. Where I used chalk paint needed to be sealed, and I'm just using that Crayon clear spray. It doesn't matter what kind of clear spray you use to seal them in. So I felt like these rounds, these garage sale rounds that I painted white, needed a little something that kind of was bushy and that kind of hung down off of it. So I have these ferns that I had picked up at a Joann's. They have like the buy one get two free sales. Yeah, if you're not a member of Joann's emails, you should be, so you can get these deals when they have them. And then this is the little succulent, is from that Hobby Lobby where they have all those little plants at Hobby Lobby that are never on sale. But so cost efficient, I wanted to make sure that these would even sale. So I'm just going to do the one for right now. Finish this whole grouping up. I'm just going to finish with these white little pots. These are something I had thrifted for $1.09 a piece. Yay. Well, no, I think they were $1.09 for all of them. I think they were the two of them were $1.09. So I'm just going to put a little floral foam in there, a little dry grass, and cut up some of these lavenders from Walmart. And I think one of the lavenders I have is actually one that I had thrifted also, a 2-piece. So very cost efficient for a reseller. You never overlooked pieces and parts that, look at, I got terracotta pots that were already painted white. So I'm just going to chunk up my piece of fluorofoam to fit in the bottom that it's nice and tight. I don't usually glue down my fluorofoam, but I just cut it large enough that I know it's nice and secure in there. And to cover up that fluorofoam, I'm still working off this thrifted box of Spanish moss. So, hey, so all I'm doing is just putting enough on there to cover up that green foam. I'm just going to take my nippers and I'm just going to cut up each individual stem of that lavender. And what I'm doing here is I'm making sure that I keep the wire towards the bottom so I have something to stick into the fluorofoam. So it's only going to take me maybe 2.5 stems to make these little terracotta pots full. So I used one whole stem of the lavender and then one more stem off another one. So not overly priced by any means of how I'm making this.
So I thank you so much for watching my thrift haul flips, and what did you think? Did you like these makeovers? Have I inspired you in any way to look at thrift store found items, garage sale items, clearance items, Dollar General items, any items out there that you can make over? It doesn't always have to be a thrift store find. So I thank you so much for watching today's video, and if you're part of my YouTube family, thank you so much. And if you're new here and checking out the content for the first time and you enjoyed this kind of content, hit that subscription button along with the notification bell so you know when I've uploaded a new video, and we'll see you next time, guys.